I would go and slander you. I would be like, hey, your product is trash. And I'll put my money where my mouth is. I'll buy $1,000 worth of your stuff. Having that strategy enabled us to skyrocket. Within 6 months, I went from a couple of $100 a day in sales to over $4,000 in sales a day.
Hey, this is Matt Cox, and I'm here with Richard Rodriguez. Richard went to prison for, I want to say you got what, 7 years? You did like 5?
7.5 years.
7.5 years.
For distribution of controlled substances, aka steroids.
Right.
And did 5.5.
Okay. So, and he actually just got out, and we're going to do a quick podcast. We're going to do a podcast with him. I appreciate it. So check this out. So you just got out of prison how long ago?
June 8th, I got out with contingencies of home confinement and unable to live on my own. So from June 8th till September 29th, I unfortunately had to live with my mother.
Right.
Out of Pensacola, but September 29th. But I used that time for good. It's like I launched my clinic throughout that time. I got my supplement line trademarked throughout that small time frame to the standpoint where September 29th, 9 a.m., they took that ankle monitor off of me. I was at Tallahassee 2 hours later, and I'm back in Miami.
Okay. And like you got your own place, like you're all set up again.
I'm all set. It's like I'm all set up. It's like I could have been set up. I could have been set up when they originally were going to release me in 2020. The situation was COVID not just affected people on the outside financially, it also affected people that were incarcerated, that were doing programs like the drug program or tutoring programs with the Department of Labor to get time taken away. It's like all that stopped.
Right.
So people that were going to get released had to stay an extra year, an extra 2 years.
Yeah, because they couldn't take like the RDAP program and get the year off.
Yeah,
right.
and which screwed me because here I am, like, October 15th, 2020, talking to like my business partner, talking to like my girlfriend at that time, talking to like my ex-wife. Hey, you know what? I'm coming out. I'm going to start helping you guys out. I got my apartment in so-and-so place, and 6 months pass by, they think I'm full of shit and lying. And I'm telling them, no, they just shut this place down because of COVID.
Right.
Then I get my 50% time, accrued. I had I had 3 different dates. Then I had a December 23rd date, literally 2 days before Christmas. My business partner Owen was happy as hey, you got to be with your family at Christmas and all that stuff. Take it away again because of the whole COVID and the changes of policies. After that, I gave up, waited till February 4th of the following year, which is 2021. And situation happened in the camp. So a lot of people that don't understand how.
Right. Well, wait a minute. Well, let's start over. Like you're already getting into. Okay. Let's start over and and go back to like you were in prison to begin with. Like where? Let's start at the beginning. Like where'd you grow up? Brooklyn, right?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, in a very bad area in Utica Avenue in Bed-Stuyvesant, around that area. And I remember I was about 7 years old, and violence everywhere. And my mom was like, "Hey, I don't want to raise you here. As you grow up, so let's move somewhere else." So she had the brilliant idea of moving me to the Bronx, to the projects, which is even worse. Right. So I went there, still out of trouble, but she kept me into sports. That's when I started experimenting with martial arts, started experimenting with football, started experimenting with a lot of sports that opened up the door to what my indictment was about, which was steroids. Because It's like, at the age of 13, 12, when you're highly competitive like I am, it's like you want to be the best in everything that you do. You don't want, if you're going to be in kickboxing, you want to be the best fucking kickboxer. If you're going to be in football and your position is a running back, you want to be the best fucking running back. You don't want to be the third option. Right. So at the age of 13, I was in the Pan Am Taekwondo Federation, and man, I was like training everything possible, but I was just getting my ass kicked. And that's when I first started getting exposed to steroids under the assumptions and false pretenses that it was vitamins. Because I told my Shihan, I was like, hey man, I'm training just as hard as these people. Why the hell am I getting my ass whooped? And he's like, oh, they're taking vitamins. I'm like, great, give me those vitamins. So at the age of 13, I was trying Dianabol. Right. I was trying Anavar, all these hardcore drugs. But guess what? Now I'm doing ass kicking. So I accrued an undefeated record really, really quick. Evolved out of that to kickboxing. From kickboxing, got into high school. High school, I stopped fighting, just to attend Greco-Roman wrestling and football. So I was always heavily involved in sports up until the point in which, the age of 17, my mom co-signed for my first apartment in Washington Heights. Which is like the upper Manhattan side, like right before you hit the Bronx, New York, and that's where I met my ex-wife and graduated from NYU with an MBA from. So I stood there all up to the point in which I had my bachelor's. My wife was studying at that time to.
How old were you at this point?
Gosh, it was probably like in my early 20s. Once I graduated with my bachelor's. She graduated with her bachelor's, did her 2 years with a public accounting firm, BDO Seidman. Packed our stuff, moved to Central Park, bought a place up in 87th Street in Central Park North.
Well, what are you doing for a living at this point?
Well, I launched right now. I have a trademark for my supplement line. It's called Fake Natty Subs. It's very interesting how
at that point.
Oh no! At that point. Oh yeah, no! I thought you were saying what you're doing at this point.
No. At that point.
Oh, at that point. I was a junior director. For a publicly traded company as a management consultant called McKinsey & Company. If anyone knows the management consulting world, there's the top two management consulting companies in the world is Booz Allen Hamilton and McKinsey & Company. So I worked there for about 6.5 years. On my 4th year, I ended up getting my MBA. And that's when I started like pursuing the world of entrepreneurship. And my first company I launched, I was an avid gamer. I used to compete in Madden football, the Madden football game.
Yeah.
So during that time, eBay was huge, and EA Sports came up with a trading platform for what's called Madden Ultimate Teams, where you have digital cards that will enable you to create like these phenomenal historical fucking teams, like a Jerry Rice with like a Rod Woodson, some crazy shit. But they didn't have a platform that can communicate with other different platforms. So if somebody has an Xbox digital card that wants to trade with someone in the PS3, at that point in time, there was no platform. So what I did was, and the videos are on YouTube, I created an eBay-like type of platform online called Game Media Empire. And it enabled individuals and cross platforms to trade these cards for actual currency.
Okay.
So
you could buy them?
Yeah, you could buy digital cards. So let's say you are so-and-so person in the PS3, so-and-so username, interested in the limited edition, digital edition Jerry Rice card. I would sell it to you for $150. We would coordinate a time when you would be online, when I would be online, that you would post it and I would buy it.
Okay.
So it's kind of like what they do now with with these Roblox games and all that other stuff where they time individuals. Digital currency at that point in time was infancy. The company was growing like crazy the first 3 months. But it's funny because within 3 months, EA Sports started realizing that somebody was circumventing the system. Right. So I started getting emails from executives at EA Sports. And saying, it's like, hey, we're considering shutting down your profile on your PS3 because we see that you're illegally exchanging digital currency. I like their cards and all that stuff. And I was like, no, I'm not. It's like everybody technically does that.
Right.
You're just butthurt because I have a platform.
I'm timing it correctly. Yeah. It doesn't sound like you're breaking.
Yeah, I'm not breaking a rule at all. From that conversation, it progressed to threats, to the standpoint where 2 months from those conversations, I actually had a phone call from a senior executive after they canceled my account. And I went from, and here I am making $100,000 to $160,000 on average a year as a junior executive for McKinsey. And I have a digital trading platform as my first business, making me an extra $2,500 to $3,000 a month.
All right.
Nothing dramatic, but for something that
Yeah, but they don't want it to take off either. They don't want
Exactly. And for me, it's like I've always had a mindset that my mentor has always taught me best. A guy by the name of Peter Jan over at McKinsey is like, no habit is a bad habit if you make money in it. So I used to love playing Madden football for 7 to 8 fucking hours a day every now and then. So I was like, hey, if this video game experience can figure out a way to monetize it and make money, I'm pretty sure my wife would get off my ass every time she sees me on TV playing this video game.
Right.
So this game was making us an extra $3,000 to $4,000 a month. She was happy as fucking hell.
Yeah.
So once that took, it was like once that situation with EA Sports, took a turn for the wrong, took a turn to the in the wrong lane. I ended up just graduating with my MBA. Now became a senior director at McKinsey. Took time off from entrepreneurship. After about year 5 at McKinsey, I realized that my mentor, Peter Janova, was going to rot in his fucking position. So there was no upward mobility whatsoever. By then, I already had some really strong connections in the pharmaceutical industry with GSK, Pfizer, and a couple of other companies, more on the digital marketing strategic growth side, specifically in Latin America. So I said, hey, you know what? Let me figure out a way to launch my own entity, i.e. advertising agency that doesn't, that can provide services that McKinsey cannot provide now, that Booz Allen Hamilton is providing. So what I did was I launched my own ad agency called America's Media Group with an office in Miami and an office in New York, left them. And my main client was McKinsey, specifically that office.
Okay.
So launched, we were the agency of record for Viagra in Latin America. Helped GSK at that point in time with the very famous HIV drug Camivir. We helped it actually. That's where I started getting exposed to what's huge now, which is called influencer marketing. I helped negotiate the contract with Magic Johnson as the spokesperson for the drug Camivir. If people understand the magnitude of that contract,
right,
it was pretty fucking complex to the point where Magic Johnson today has probably made hundreds of millions of dollars in just that drug and the sponsorship of just that drug. And it went great till I realized my grandmother, God rest her soul, during that time I was living full time in Miami and she was getting really, really sick. It was stage 3 cancer. So I had to move immediately to New York to care for her because my mom wasn't there mentally. And for those 6 months, I couldn't really focus in taking care of the business. So unbeknownst to me, here I am every week reading Advertising Age, the magazine for people in the ad agencies, saying so-and-so account has been lost by America's Media and has now been acquired by another ad agency. So here I am at that point in time when I moved to New York, the company being a $7.9 million company, and I'm seeing every single other month another account that I've worked hard in getting being lost to this other agency. I didn't have time to do my due diligence to figure out what fucking agency this is. Right.
Somebody else within your company had started another agency.
My partner that fled, that piece of shit motherfucker, pardon my French, he ended up.
I mean, don't hold back. How do you really feel? How do you feel about him?
Oh, trust me, I could tell you a fucking story about this prick. He was actually he launched his own separate company, and was basically stealing the fucking accounts to the standpoint where when my grandmother passed away and I decided that I had to come back, I had to stay in New York to care for my mom. I decided to sell the equity stake of my company. At that point in time, selling your company share when you're at a $7 million company versus selling your company shares when you're a $1.5 million company is a huge fucking difference of what you're going to be getting paid. So I sold my shares when we were like about a $1.2 million company. It was not until 6 months after I sold my company, and during that time I was working for Quest Diagnostics as one of the senior directors for Quest Diagnostics. I was launching their company called Laboratorio Buena Salud, their diagnostic service entity in Latin America. I met one of my friends, and he was like, "Oh, you know about Edward, right?" And I was like, "Who? My former business partner at that agency?" He's like, "Yeah, man, his agency is fucking thriving. They're doing work with Pfizer. They're doing work with all these motherfuckers." I'm like, "Fucking doing work with Pfizer? What the fuck? It's my company." So when I started like analyzing everything, I'm like, oh, this fucker, like, like he fucked me over.
Right.
So what did I do to get him back? What I started doing is like I realized every single place where he was where he was registered, his company was registered, and I ended up getting someone to actually re-register a very similar company. So if it was America's Media Group LLC, I would register in New York America's Media Group LLP.
Right.
Almost a spitting mirror image. I would call the ad agencies and tell them, hey, your next payment is not due. We have a new address for your next payment. And so they would send payments. They would send payments to now my bank account. I never deposited it until I accrued over $1.3 million in payables from all these places. And then I gave the guy a call. And I'm a lucky piece of shit. Now I have leverage. You screwed me off of this deal. No, that's a lie. I was like, look, I sent him an email, showed him all the paperwork substantiating. I was like, look, you can do serious amount of time if you actually, if I actually, expose you for what you did. But I got an option for you. I got an offer for you. He's like, what? I was like, I have $1.3 million
right.
in checks that I can easily cash, but I'm being a nice man and letting you know that I'm capable of cashing it. I'm going to cash it. I'm going to deposit it. However, if you come after me, we're going to have a very good battle. He realized that he fucked up. He realized he had no freaking leverage. I cashed it. I cashed those checks, did very well, quit Quest Diagnostics because now I have money to start up.
Right.
That's when my wife, after 3.5 years trying for us to have a child, told me, it's like, babe, I'm pregnant. And that was one of the biggest moments of my life, man. Trying for 3.5 years to have a kid, her being abandoned. I don't know about anyone, but you just want to be a father. You just want to have somebody that you could love and show them the things in which you never had.
Yeah.
So after 3 years trying artificial insemination, everything, you name it, I'm thinking to myself, it's like, fuck, nothing's working. So let's just give up. Let's just have a fucking puppy. So we go on a trip to Paris, and she starts vomiting. And I was like, babe, we eat fucking French food all the time. We go to Paris at least 2 or 3 times a year. What the fuck is wrong? So I take her to the hospital, and they say that she's 2 months pregnant. Nice. Man, it's like, when that shit happened, it's like I had her mother, God rest her soul. I was like, I called her up. I was like, look, you're retiring. You're gonna take care of her. I don't even want her to wipe her own ass, just in case of a possible miscarriage. And that's when, that's when we decided to move out of New York. Because during that time, she was working for a private equity firm called Zip Brothers Investments. She was their controller. So she was working remotely. During that time, I wasn't working because I had that money that came in from America's Media Group. So right. I didn't need to work because I had a good amount of money. So I was like, look, there's no reason for us to stay here. We have a place in Miami. Let's just move over there. And that's where shit started going downhill. I moved to Miami. The money that I acquired from that negotiation from the previous douchebag that screwed me at the ad agency started to dwindle. Because let's face it, Miami is not a cheap fucking place. Just because you think that it's like, oh, it's a big difference than New York. So I started saying, hey, what kind of business can I launch that I know that I could differentiate myself in, I have contacts and connections in, and eventually make this a formal way to supplement my income. So I'm driving all around Collins. I'm driving around all around fucking Miami. I'm seeing these fucking pain clinics. I'm seeing these fucking steroid anti-aging ads everywhere. I'm like, there's fucking anti-aging clinics around here in every fucking corner, like grocery stores in the hood. This must be fucking legal. Right. So during that time, I was like, how can I do it in the most efficient way without incurring the costs of a brick and mortar and being budget positive as soon as I possibly fucking can? So what I did was I started what was known as WFN Pharmaceuticals, otherwise known as Wellness, Fitness, Nutrition. Originally, just so people can understand, my intentions for Wellness, Fitness, Nutrition was not to be referred to as the largest steroid ring operation in U.S. history. It was really as a form to just supplement my income.
Right.
So I started off in Facebook groups. I started off in forums. And then when I started realizing, and it's funny because what I would do, right, is I would see, let's say you were one of the people that was selling your products, right? I would go and slander you. I would be like, hey, your product is trash. And I'll put my money where my mouth is. I'll buy $1,000 worth of your stuff. And because I used to have a connection in California that had multi-million-dollar HPLC machines. So if your product was trash, you were going to have a very difficult time proving to people that it's not, when a medical report that, you know, that tests the validity of your product confirms that indeed it is. So having that strategy enabled us to skyrocket to the standpoint where within 2 weeks, I had to outsource via outsourcing platforms like Upworks.com about 5 people in India. So I had 5 people in India with templates, anywhere from $1 to $3 an hour, just replicating those, responses, replicating those posts in every fucking forum you could think of, in every Facebook group you could think of, and in Reddits, and it's like to the standpoint where it's like I was replicating 15 of me.
Right. But so you're smashing your competition and redirecting them to your site.
Exactly. And within 6 months, I went from a couple of $100 a day in sales to over $4,000 in sales a day.
Right.
Just with that strategy. And our operation at that point in time at $4,000 to $5,000 sales a day, this is to show you how crazy it was. It was a 1-bedroom apartment where I had 2 people packaging. We were distributors at that time. We didn't even have our own product line. I was distributing it for an individual that I tested his product.
Right.
His product was great, consistently great. So he would give it to me anywhere between $20 to $35 a bottle, depending on the complexity of the compound, and I would resell it for $70 to $110.
He's been known to cure insecurity just with his laugh. His organ donation card lists his charisma. His smile is so contagious. Vaccines have been created for it. He is the most interesting man in the world.
I don't typically commit crime, but when I do, it's bank fraud. Stay greedy, my friends.
Support the channel. Join Matthew Cox's Patreon.
Right. Did you eventually open up your own lab?
Oh yeah, of course. Because what I did was, when I started seeing the growth projections, and it kept going, it kept going up and up and up and up. I was still at $15,000 in sales a day. I was still driving a $99 a month Beetle convertible. I barely used to wash it. So, but at that price point, when I'm making all that amount of money, you see the people that are distributing my product and selling my products in Bentleys, Lamborghinis. I remember my first business partner out of Egypt, a guy by the name of Ahmed Dawood. This is a kid that I took him out of Ohio. He was a nurse assistant. I was paying him $200 a week. I was paying him $200 a week to move to Miami. And he, when I made him a partner, this is how crazy money changes some people. At $200 a week, he was sending his parents in Egypt $100 a week like clockwork because they were poor, right? Second, I make him 20% partner in his in the company, and I give him a $60,000 check. What do you think? He sent money to his parents? The first words out of his mouth, I want a Lamborghini.
Not with $60,000, but yeah.
This is a kid, doesn't have a license, has never fucking driven in his life. Now all of a sudden doesn't give a shit about his fucking parents. And I'm like, yo, dude, send $30,000 to your parents. You'll still have enough money to deposit to a Lamborghini, and you just make some monthly payments. He's like, no, I want a Lamborghini. Fine. So I work with one of my friends that that has a dealership license. Like, yo, what, like during that time, the Gallardo was the popular one. So I got him a black fucking Lamborghini Gallardo, helped him out and all that stuff, helped him get his license and all that in an expedited fashion. Guess how long that Lamborghini Gallardo lasted him? 2 fucking weeks.
What, he wrecked it?
He fucking wrecked it. But this is what's crazy about certain people. I remember when he got it, the second day, He gets out of that car. I'm talking about like a fucking, like Don the Bishop Don Juan. I'm talking about like red shirt, red pants, red gator shoes, red top hat. He comes to work like with this fucking swag. And he's like, Rich, I think I could secure any fucking girl. I could steal any fucking girl from you. And me, being in the industry of fitness, because I also used to do coaching, so I used to train some of the hottest fucking fitness chicks, and just that alone could be a whole different podcast of some crazy stories. Selling shit in the porn industry and being exposed to porn stars just because of the products I used to sell. I can tell you some crazy fucking stories. I knew how shallow women are, and I know how with the right verbiage and with the right game, how easy it is to procure these type of women. So I put him up on an offer. I was like, oh, so you think you can steal women from me, right? And he's like, yeah. I was like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna go to the Clevelander tonight, and if I win, you're not gonna get paid your partnership check next month. And he's like, bet, because he's like so fucking positive. This dude just fucking jacked 273, about 5% body fat, and I'm like out of shape, but I know how to do things. So I go to the Clevelander. You see his Lamborghini, nice, washed and all that stuff. I drive to the same valet with my fucking Beetle, but I have a $90,000 fucking watch. I have my black Amex. And I'm dressed up conservatively with an Iron Addict shirt, from my gym in Miami. Nothing extravagant, but my fucking Versace loafers, right? So they're just subtle touches. So I get out of the car. I'm about to park in valet. The guy's like, hey, you can't park the car there. I was like, there's no, here's $300. I want this car to be parked right next to this Lamborghini. And the guy's like, you're fucking crazy. And I was like, there's a reason for this. I give the valet $300. He parks my fucking dirty ass fucking Beetle right next to this Lamborghini. I see him talking to two girls. And I walked over there, just started hanging out, and I just let him talk to the girls. Kept on letting him talk to the girls. After like about 15 minutes, I told the bartender, I was like, look, here's my card. I want to buy rounds of drinks for all the girls that are in this area right here. And he's like, are you serious? I was like, yeah. But I also want you to make an announcement that I'm the one that's buying the rounds of drinks for all these other type of girls. So he was like, all right, cool. So I give him the card. He makes the announcement. Within seconds, those girls was like, oh, hey, what do you do? And I was like, oh, nothing but gyms and all that stuff. Dude was fucking crying. Because now it's like, no, none of those girls in that area wanted to pay attention to him. So I didn't take those girls home. I didn't have sex with any of those girls. The following day, he comes into the office. He's like, man, I'm sorry. I should have been humble and all that stuff. I was like, yo, dude, I'm going to still give you your check next month. This is just to show you that, it's like, be humble. It's like, there's a reasons why, even though I'm making all this money, in comparison to what you're doing, you don't see me flaunting it. You don't see me on social media, flicking my wrist with all these, with all these watches, because I like to be the individual to know that I have the capabilities of buying that yacht, but not being the fucking idiot that goes ahead and purchases it.
Right.
And that's when he started learning, and I'm mentoring him, and we continued to grow. And I started transitioning over to influencer marketing, same strategy that I did at McKinsey with GSK and acquiring Magic Johnson. I started working the angle with the bodybuilders, started working the angle with powerlifters, and dude, we fucking skyrocketed. We went from, as soon as like a person like Kevin Larone with 1 million followers, Flex Wheeler with 1 million followers, Stan Efferdin, it's like all the top powerlifters you could during that time you could imagine. We went to like 35,000, and it got to the point in sales a day, to the point where a close friend of mine now, where I'm a regular at RX Muscle, Dave Palumbo, at that point in time, he was indirectly promoting someone else. He would bash me. And it's so funny because, and he and I talk about this all the time, is that at that point in time, we were making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in sales a day like that, very, very easy. And our gyms were gaining popularity, but weren't as obviously profitable as the drug business, let's face it.
Right.
So what he started, his first video, he launched slandering my company, saying, oh, well, this is an illegal operation. This stuff is trash, blah, 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 blah. And I remember my sales reps calling me from everywhere, from Australia to California to South Africa, because I was distributing several areas in the U.S. And they're like, "Yo, man, you got this person with like 500,000 subscribers in YouTube talking trash about my company." I was like, "Hey, log in into our sales platform." They're like, "Yeah." I was like, "Look, it's 11 o'clock in the afternoon. We've made more than we would normally do in a day, and it's not even half the day. Let them talk shit." Because I know what the average conversion ratios are. Dude, if I convert 3% of his fucking followers, guess what? Curiosity kills a cat, but satisfaction brings them back, right? So that day I made $67,000 in one fucking day. So what do? I didn't go send them an email talking trash to him, saying, why the fuck you talking bad to me? I go to Mercedes-Benz Coconut Creek. I added some more money of my own cash. I bought a Maybach. In cash, I had two hookers with me. Took a picture in the car with the two hookers laying back, and send them a receipt paying the car in cash. And I simply wrote an email to him saying thank you. He wrote back cursing me out, "Fuck you, you arrogant piece of shit, blah, 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 blah." About 4 days from that email, does another YouTube video trashing my company. That day I made $94,300. What do? At that point in time, I went with my colleague to a Mannheim dealership auction. That's when I bought my McLaren 650S cash, $230,000 cash. What do? Same thing. Got two good-looking girls laid out, laid next to it. Show him the receipt. Thanks again. Think he ever did a third video? But we became the best of friends. And, when I got out June 8th, he was the first person that I gave him the opportunity to interview me. June 9th and June 10th, I was a regular in RX, and he and I are like the best fucking buddies.
So what happened? Eventually, so you're selling through a website, you're generating leads through Facebook, but these, you can't run ads. You're not running ads. But
actually, you could.
You can.
During that time, it's not as stringent as it is now. Like you see right now, my clinic, Circadian Rejuvenation, has to have a certification from a company called Legit Scripts that analyzes your compounding pharmacy and analyzes your company nine ways to Sunday. It's a 6-week process. During that time, in 2013, 2012, 2011, there were so many ways to easily circumvent the Google AdWords system. Granted, you had to change your Google AdWords accounts every 3 to 4 months when when the algorithms would pick up that you're not a licensed PCA compound facility. But it was so simple. I would just stay there, just awaiting for that time in which I would receive that email saying that my Google Ads account was closed, and I just launched another one in a couple of minutes.
So you're making money. You're doing great. At what point do you feel like things started going wrong? When do the authorities get involved? When do they?
Very good question.
Are you still driving the Beetle?
What? No, I'm driving. Right now. I have a Chevy Equinox.
No, I don't mean at this point in the story.
No, at that point in time, shit, right? At that point
still living in a one bedroom, or
no? At that point in time, I had 3 different apartments. I had about 9 cars. At that point in time, my gym in Miami was already open, making me close to about 40 to 60,000 net a month. Everything was up and running. That's when I started hearing about a potential case, and I'll tell you exactly how. It's like when I realized something was going wrong. Steroids, the cops don't really give a shit about it. So
it's stupid. It's a stupid fucking. It has to be extremely blatant and in everybody's face, and people have to start complaining for them to go fuck.
Or not even complaining, dude. It's just sheer size. See, with me, people were always getting popped. My distributors were always getting popped, maybe with 100 bottles, because they saw a transaction in the parking lot.
Right.
And a cop would stop them.
It looks bad. Okay.
Yeah. So they would grab them. Like, I had the best fucking attorneys at that point in time, on retainers. Those people, charges dismissed, in and out of prison within a couple of hours. So fast forward to, because I got arrested February 2017. Fast forward to November 2016. Similar process. One of my distributors gets caught in a parking lot. One day passes by. My lawyer's is like, hey, I don't know what the fuck is going on with this guy. He's like, I can't call him. I can't reach him. I don't know where he's at, blah, 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 and all that stuff. 2 weeks pass by. Same situation.
He's still in jail?
He's still in jail.
Didn't get out on bond?
Didn't get out on bond. No, he hasn't reached me. Third week comes up. I finally get a phone call from my lawyer. He's like, hey, I finally spoke with Eric. He's out, blah, 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 and all that stuff. So my typical process when people's cases used to get dismissed, I would do the typical thing that I would do. I would go meet you. Hey, man, what's going on? Anything weird? No. It just asked me a few questions. I was like, hey, great. Here's a month's salary. Go hang out. Don't worry. Your job is guaranteed. Just take some time off, because I used to deliberately take that month to like research on whether or not this guy's cooperating, whether or not this guy's clean, doing your due diligence to cover your ass. So knowing that it already passed 3 weeks, couldn't get in contact with this fucking guy, I'm thinking, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
So I go meet him. I sit down with him. He's like, hey, man, so walk me through what's happened. He's like, oh, they were asking about this guy named Dr. Rodriguez. They were asking about this clinic, this distribution centers.
Does this have anything to do with you? Has nothing to do with
Fuck yeah.
Thought maybe it was somebody else.
But the thing about it is like nobody knew my alias. Nobody knew my distribution channels. Nobody knew anything. It's like for all they knew, they were just distributing fucking supplements. Supplements, not anabolic steroids.
So you're Dr. Rodriguez.
That was my alias, because I'm
okay.
not an actual doctor.
I gathered that.
So what ended up happening was he started asking all these questions. I'm like, fuck, all this shit is running through my head. It's like, fuck, there's an investigation. I had one of the reasons why I was so successful in the steroid industry is because I had a plug with a federal agency called USADA, the United States Anti-Doping Agency. So I used to be able to develop compounds to mask testing for some of my athletes. But the reasons why that's a good connection to have is because typically what people don't understand with steroid cases, typically large steroid cases are always eventually going to be aligned with a company, with a federal agency like USADA, because USADA, if it involves athletes, they're going to get involved in that investigation. So I called my connection in USADA. I was like, hey, man, I've heard some small talk in the gyms about this fucking clinic and company and stuff like that out of Miami. So I gave him the name of my company.
Yeah.
And he's like, who told you about this? Do you know anything about this company? I was like, no, it's just small talk. I was like, well, there's been an opening investigation in the Eastern District of New York with this company. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, holy fuck. And he's like, it's only a matter of time in which they'll start, start arresting people and all that stuff. And this is like fucking December. So I'm thinking, like, I can't think straight in fucking Christmas, knowing that eventually, soon, some handcuffs are going to be. So you could only imagine that Christmas, and how stressed I was. And never told anything to my wife. Had a phenomenal Christmas. January 12th, they raided one of my places in Little Haiti.
What do you mean, one of your places?
One of my stash spots / fulfillment centers in Haiti. When that happened, I'm thinking to myself, I was like, fuck, let me just lay low for a little while, and this just probably be like some nonsense and it'll blow over. So I stopped my operations for like about 3 weeks, relaunched a fulfillment center in another location, but much further away, like Hialeah.
Law enforcement often questions him, not because he's suspected of a crime, but because they find him fascinating. He is the most interesting man in the world.
I don't typically commit crime, but when I do, it's bank fraud. Stay greedy, my friends.
Support the channel. Join Matthew Cox's Patreon.
So that place got raided within weeks. But the only situation is from the day in which that got raided, the following day, that's when the whole shit went down. Fast forward to February 16th, 2017. They caught me. I interviewed actually the U.S. Marshal that orchestrated the whole thing on my YouTube channel. That one, by the way, was a client, was a gym member for my gym. And I was on my way to the airport because once, a smart person would know, if you know that your time is ticking, what you're going to do, you try to get your affairs in order.
Right.
So I was literally flying into to LA that day to dissolve some of my companies out of Los Angeles to sell it off to someone so I could have some more assets. But it's funny because I'm right there at the airport. I sit down. I sit down in the plane, and I'm about to take off. But what a lot of people don't understand is that while I'm awaiting the board, while I'm awaiting to be sat down in first class, I'm getting text messages from my assistant at that point in time saying they just arrested so and so. Dude, the marshals and the DEA are at the gym. And I'm really not really caring about any of this stuff because I was like, I knew that it was just going to happen.
Yeah, you're just waiting.
Exactly. Up until the point in which I received a text message. Your wife is outside in bra and panties. They have her handcuffed. She's crying up a storm, and the babysitter is with your son. I was like, why the fuck do they have my wife like fucking naked outside and all that shit? So
leverage.
That's when I was like, because they didn't know where the fuck I was, because my wife wasn't telling. It was like I was in the airport about to fucking flee and all that other shit. So that's when I was just like devastated, dude. It's like like I started asking the bartender for drinks and all that stuff, and then from the time in which I asked the bartender for drinks, I overheard a message saying, we're experiencing technical difficulties, so we're not going to be able to depart. It's like, we'll let you know when that happens. Bullshit. There wasn't no fucking technical difficulties. Within a few minutes from that message, you see the electric stairs coming to the plane, and you see like U.S. Marshals with fucking ARs and all that other shit coming to the fucking plane. And they're like, hey, is there Richard Rodriguez here? And that's when I was like, I had to give up. I was like, I'm not going to, where the fuck am I going to run in a fucking plane? So I raised my hand. The guy, Manny, phenomenal guy, man, very humble, arrested me, and he's like, it took me to my place, back to my place. However, en route to back to my place, that's when I told him, I was like, look, can you guys do me a favor? Specifically you, Manny, because it's like, you saw that I didn't restrain. I was very respectful. He's like, what? I was like, why the fuck do you have my wife outside fucking naked? And he's like, let me find out. Finds out. That's the reason why I even interviewed her, because he did a phenomenal job in handling the situation. He was like, look, I wasn't aware of this. That was never supposed to happen. I reprimanded the guy. He's going to get suspended for doing what he did, and got my wife back upstairs, took care of the whole situation. And that's when I sat down, that's when the DA, task officer that was in charge of the case, sits me down, and he's like, what we arrested you for. And I was like, yeah, I have an idea. And he's like, so you gonna say anything? I was like, fuck you, I want an attorney. So he's like, you're making it difficult for you, you're making it difficult for your wife, you're making it difficult for your kid. Do you want your kid to be in child protective services? I'm like, look, don't think that for 1 second I didn't do my due diligence. There is such a thing as called non-stack sentencing. So there's no way in fucking hell that my son is ever going to go to child protective services. And even then, if you want to be a prick and arrest my wife and myself at the same time, guess what? There's such a thing as called next to kin. So who's going to take care of my son? My mother. So this is not going to happen. So don't try to threaten me or force me to cooperate with you in hopes of me losing my kid, because you know how much that means to me. And he's like, oh, so you did do your research.
Well, they're always going to do. They're trying to get they're trying to get leverage over you, like or at least give you a reason to cooperate. So that you can justify it to yourself. They always hit women with that too. We'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do that, and people panic and they don't realize, like, they're not understanding, like, your sister will take the child, your mother, your aunt, your uncle, your brother. But a lot of people just get scared immediately. You know what they're doing.
Of course, dude. Don't get me wrong. For 1 second, I'm not gonna lie here and say I wasn't fucking scared.
All right.
But the poker face I had, motherfucker, I'll tell you right now, I was like, the second I show these people that I'm scared, I'm fucked.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna fuck me. So it's like I played the game just with them, and I remember that a week in, I still wasn't able to get bond. So a week in, they released my wife.
And you're still in LA.
No, this is because I never made it to LA. Remember?
Oh, okay.
They arrested
You're in
me.
Miami.
So I'm in the Miami.
You're in Miami, and you haven't got bond. Have you had first appearance yet? Like they denied it.
I had first appearance. They denied me.
They said you were trying. He was like, "We've caught him at the airport.
Trying to flee,
I'm trying
blah,
to flee. You're all that
stuff
bullshit. They know is bullshit.
We just know it's bullshit.
Like, I'm flying to it's a federal jurisdiction, Your Honor. He was flying to California.
Yeah, like, if I'm a fucking flea, I had businesses in Dominican Republic. I had businesses in Australia. I had businesses like in fucking Thailand and fucking India. That distributing like if I'm a fucking flea, I'm a flea to one of those fucking countries.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was there for like about a week. And the first attorney that I happened to fire came to me, and told me, it's like, hey man, your exposure, because you see people that never done, that are not criminals, won't know what the difference is of exposure and the actual time that you would be looking at when you get sentenced. So that attorney of mine, Mr. Jared Duchovna, that I fired, he told me, he's like, hey man, you're looking at possibly 25 years.
Right.
And that's because, you know, he was assessing all the 7 charges. It was importation, distribution, marketing, manufacturing of a controlled substance, money laundering, bank fraud, wire fraud. So the money laundering at the value of 27 million, yeah, it was looking fucking steep. So all I'm thinking to myself, I'm not thinking exposure because I didn't know the fucking definition because I'm not a career criminal. I'm thinking, holy shit, I'm going to do 25 fucking years. My son's 3 years old. I'm going to see him when he's damn near 30. I went through a deep fucking stage of depression, dude. Yeah. I went back into my room and it's like I was contemplating suicide. I was contemplating everything you could possibly name. And that's when a guy by the name of Thomas Brown, God rest his soul, phenomenal fucking friend, man. I actually reconnected with him in Yazoo City. He was there for a case too. And so he's like, Rich, let me educate you, man. This is my 3rd time, in the feds. It's like, you're never gonna do your exposures unless you're a fucking idiot and you go to trial, and they throw everything at you. And I'm like, okay. So it's like, what are you?
And you're guilty. You can't go to trial. You're guilty.
Exactly. So he's like, what? He's like, let me analyze the case. So that's when smoking weed, trying to relax. He's like, it's so funny because I never smoked weed. And I was like, the only drug I ever did was anabolics since I was the age of 13. And like, yeah, I used to occasionally drink. So my first experience with weed was in prison, trying to freaking calm myself down. So here we are smoking and relaxed and calm, no longer depressed. And when he educated me on the, on everything, saying, he's like, hey, Rich, college educated, U.S. citizen, it's like a big influence in society and all that stuff. Worst case scenario, you're looking at 10. I'm like, all right, cool, I could do 10. He's like, but realistically, you could probably cop a deal and maybe make anywhere between 5 to, 3 to 6 years. So that's when I called Jared. Jared, fuck you. You're fired for scaring the shit out of me. And I hired the guy that till this day has become like a close friend of mine, a guy by the name of Richard Cooper out of Miami. And first step for him was to negotiate a plea deal to get the money laundering off. The plea deal.
That's the harshest. That's the harshest. That's up to 30 years.
That's
right?
Up to, so, yeah, of course.
Yeah, and they're saying 20. They're saying 27 million. So their calculation is based on 27 million of money laundering is 25 years. You go to 30. So that's why he was saying 25. But yeah, you're not facing anything like that once you got rid of the money.
Well, of course. Once you got rid of the money laundering, I was looking at 0 to 10.
I think they hit everybody with money. They hit me with money laundering. It's like, people sent me money. I took the money out of the bank. Money laundering. It's like, well, how else? Like, to me, that's not money laundering. You know what I'm saying? Money laundering to me is taking dirty money, getting it into the bank, cleaning it so it looks like it's legitimate money,
Correct.
Running it through a business or whatever, which actually probably works for you. But for me, it was like, I'm borrowing money from the bank and I'm pulling the money out of the bank. They went money laundering. Like, that's not, to me, that's not money laundering. But so yeah, I see what you said. They hit. I think they can hit everybody with it.
Technically, yeah, of course, because by that time, when their explanation for the money laundering and it took a couple of months to actually get the charges dropped. That charge dropped is because they were saying it's like, oh, there was no possible way legally he could substantiate the lifestyle of 12 cars, 3 different apartments, and all that stuff. And I was like, technically, you're wrong, because prior to engaging in criminal activity specific in steroids, I was averaging a household income of over $275,000 a year.
Right.
That's just my income and my wife's income.
You've had several businesses. You have several businesses since then.
Exactly. So it's like, and that's not including my gyms. That at that time I was making about 30 to 45,000 net. So there is a way that I could substantiate that. So for you to go to the courts and say, hey, you know what, it was money laundering. It's like, it's because because people need to understand the magnitude. When you're making $20,000 to $40,000 net a day, really realize what the purchasing power is. I could literally go to Aventura Mall, and I did that for about 2 months just to get the feeling of it. You could buy a fucking Rolex every fucking day. You can buy a car or 2 every fucking month.
Right.
And that's the reasons why I had a pretty hefty prostitute budget of like $4,000 to $5,000 a week, because what's $4,000 to $5,000? That's 1 hour of sales. Right. When I'm buying all these cars every other month, what's another $100,000 car when I'm making $3 million, a month in sales. This is nothing. So when you understand that, yeah, I could kind of see where the feds were going with respect to saying that this extravagant lifestyle. But one, I was never posting anything on social media. I was never like, because it's funny, because prior to this podcast, he was talking about like the rappers and all that stuff. Like,
yeah.
I was never like that, dude. I was the type of person, I would work my 16 hours or my 18 hours, go home, hug my kid, just hang out with him, play with him, and just fucking sleep. Just sleep and go back to the next day. And yeah, I had all these fucking cars, but the only reasons why I had all those cars is because it goes back to what my mentor told me. No habit is a bad habit if it teaches you how to make money. So when I first bought my first car, when I started making all that money, I always wanted an SLS AMG with the gull wings. That fucking shit fascinated me.
Right.
So that was the first car I bought, the Black Edition AMG. It was about $475 at that time. So I ended up buying it at a finance. I deposited $60K and purchased it. That was my car. I was happy with that car for the rest of my fucking career. I wasn't gonna buy any other car. However, I started getting fondness. I bought a second car. So as soon as I started getting the second car, I started seeing my finance charges that, it's like I'm paying fucking $4,000 for like a month for two fucking cars. That's when I automatically started thinking of what my mentor told me. I was like, how can I make money off of this? So that's when I aligned myself with my friend that was, that had the license with the dealerships and had friends at Prestige Imports and a couple other luxury rentals. I started saying, he's like, hey, now I'm going to go to these luxury rental companies and telling them, it's like, hey, you can rent my car as much as you fucking want over the span of the month. However, I want a guarantee every month. So I don't give a shit if you rent this car 30 days out of the month, make $50,000, $60,000. As long as you cover my nut, which is the finance and the insurance, I'm happy as a pig and shit. So yeah, I had 12 fucking cars. Yeah, I was spending $36,000 a month in finance car payments. But
they're being rented out.
But I was breaking even.
Right.
So I was breaking even, so I was making it a habit. It's the same thing with it's the same thing with like fish tanks. I started getting addicted to fucking fish tanks, saltwater fish, stingrays, you fucking name it. Once I realized that after 2 fucking fish tanks, I was spending in upwards of almost like $2,000 a month just on upkeeps. I went in New Jersey. There was a distribution company that used to import fish from Fiji and used to import fish from Hawaii that I used to buy a lot of the rare exotic fish from. I saw that their financials wasn't that strong. So I was like, hey, let's negotiate some type of strategic alliance, i.e. partnership, where you give me an equity piece of your business and I'll manage your online business. I'll promote you. I'll grow you. In exchange, I want all my shit for free. And I want a percentage. So now I'm making money off of a habit. And that's what has enabled me. And that's why my wife didn't divorce me at that point in time, because she started realizing that every single thing I was like buying in excess.
Right.
You're
turning them into business opportunities.
Exactly. It's not like these people that try to keep up with the Joneses. And let's face it, dude. Like in Miami, you got a lot of those type of people that are driving fucking McLarens, living with their mother. And I was never like that. So like I never wanted to spend money on something extravagantly, even though I knew I had the cash flow for that, without knowing that it was either going to make me money or it was for a reason, or it was for a valid reason. Because like I said, I had that Beetle convertible, up until the point I was making about $7,000 to $8,000 of sales a day. Anybody that tells you that they're making $7,000 to $8,000 in sales a day and is driving a fucking Beetle, either you're a Jew, I'm sorry, no offense, that you're extremely fucking frugal, or you're like extremely fucking cheapskate, or something wrong with you neurologically or psychologically. Because how could you fucking fathom you're not even wanting to wash a $99 a month fucking car and driving around low key? Why? Because I was low key. I never wanted any attention to be brought against me.
So you're saying so basically the feds would have a difficult time getting in front of a jury, showing that, hey, this guy's living like he's a baller, he's spending money, he's making tons of money, there's tons of photographs. They'd have to be able to just kind of say, look, he purchased a vehicle for this, but then he was also renting it out for this. So like these are all profitable businesses, as opposed to being able to go in front of a bunch of people that work at Walmart and can barely pay their bills, saying, look, he's in Venice. Look, he's on vacation here. He's on vacation here. He's in, so instead of making them be able to hate you, you don't have any photographic evidence online to help them with that. The only thing they have essentially to harm you is
Hearsay.
Is hearsay and some receipts, but receipts that basically you can easily justify by saying that's a business.
Exactly. That's the reasons why it was easy to eventually, after all the bullshit was uncovered, to easily cop out to only one charge of the 7, which was marketing of a controlled substance, because all the buildings all the buildings weren't under my name. All those cars weren't under my name. All these things in which they took over, like the stash houses weren't under my name. The manufacturing and the importation of products and the equipment weren't under my name. So you can't say that it's like, hey, you know what? That operation in Arizona was mine.
Right.
You could have substantiated it. It's like these sales were mine. The website, was mine. You couldn't. However, they hacked into my accounts, my Instagram accounts, and all that stuff. So during that time, I was getting my very huge popularity in the coaching business. Having coached Mark Wahlberg for the movie Pain and Gain, helping him gain all this muscle, over 30-something pounds of muscle for that film, and getting all this negative publicity from TMZ and all these other individuals. I started gaining popularity working with celebrities, working with all these coaches, and as soon as they hacked my account, that's when they started seeing all these messages. Hey, so-and-so product is going to arrive in so-and-so time. This is your protocol. This is how you need to do it. I will go to I would go to this film shoot. I'll show you exactly how to inject it. This is the type of nutrition you need to take. They had me dead to rights.
Right.
So marketing of a controlled substance, there was fucking irrefutable evidence.
Right.
So that was what I eventually copped out to.
So, okay. So the Mark Wahlberg thing, it's funny you mention him. I just saw that movie. Like, I mean, like a month ago, who was it that I think it was Boziak said to me, he's like, bro, you got to watch this movie. You ever seen this movie? It's good. It's got Mark Wahlberg, and it had The Rock in it. Well, Dwayne Johnson. So it had him in it, and I watched that movie, and I remember thinking he looked like way more muscle, way bulkier in that movie than typically. Than I'd ever seen him before, and so you're saying that was a part of.
That's where I started. Yeah, that's where I started. Because one of the things in which people have to understand in business is that if you do not have existing relationships in an industry, you have to pay to play. Right. So the reasons why the steroid industry for me grew very, very quickly is because I knew all the who's in bodybuilding. I knew all the who's in powerlifting. You name it, I've either coached them, worked with them, or given them some form of protocol. From Ronnie Coleman to Dorian Yates to Dexter Jackson to Kevin Laverne, you name it, I've worked with them. So when I started realizing that my market in the bodybuilding powerlifting community was saturated, I wanted to expand into other industries. So that's when I went to Vegas. I met with Ron Jeremy, Dan Bilzerian, started actually promoting a dick injection and a couple of products into the porn industry.
Bro, what's wrong with this guy?
So in order for me to pay to play, I started connecting myself with individuals in the porn industry. That's when I got to meet Ron Jeremy. That's when I got to meet Dan Bilzerian at that point in time. Went to the Adult Film Festival conference that's done twice a year. One in Australia, one in Vegas. Met with them, told them, I was like, hey, these are some products that I created. They work phenomenal in film shoots. And they're like, how so? I was like, I know about the industry. You guys have what's called fluffers. Right. People that actually literally keep the person's thing hard, because so people don't know about fluffers.
A chick that's there that basically.
So I told him, I was like, you won't need that with these products. And they're like, what? And I was like, look, let me go do a photo shoot. Let me show you how this is done. So like with my injection at that point in time, it's like you inject your penis within 1 second. It's erected for like 3 fucking hours. And then
isn't that dangerous?
To a degree, yes. But you got to understand that it's like an injection site is just like an injection site in for steroids. It's like it's what's called, you develop scar tissue. So it's just like somebody that takes insulin. If they keep injecting themselves in the same location, you're eventually going to develop scar tissue.
Right.
So what I used to tell them is like, hey, you know what? If this person is injecting himself frequently, rotate the areas. It's just like when I had all those prostitutes and I'm injecting myself with the dick injection 3 times a fucking week just to keep up with 3 or 4 women in a hotel room, I would rotate, my dick injection. But it's funny because...
and you got a divorce.
Yeah, I got a divorce.
That's crazy that would have happened when.
Yeah, but you know what though?
Based on these stories.
No, but it's you know what it is though. It's like that prostitution thing ended up happening. That addiction ended up happening about a year before the indictment. My ex-wife went through a very difficult pregnancy. She went through her mom slowly dying of stage 3 cancer.
Okay.
So for like a whole year, we didn't have sex.
Oh, okay.
So so I practically felt like a roommate.
Yeah.
So here I am having a gym franchise, striving. Here I am making $50,000-$60,000 a day. We're in Miami, women practically throwing themselves at you. We went through marriage counseling. We went through everything because that's how I am. It's like I'm just not gonna fuck around without you actually knowing that I'm fucking around. Because I'm just not like, I'll give you time. I took a year,
Right.
a year of counseling and still not having any extramarital relationship with her. That's when I was just like, okay, fuck it. I've had enough.
Yeah. You can't expect more than like it's not like she's physically got a physical issue. She's just mentally, she's just not there and it's not happening. You can't expect
and I respect her. And I respect her till this day. I mean, we have a phenomenal co-parenting relationship. I help her out in any way she possibly needs, and financially and all that stuff. I still love her till this day. She's like she's a mentor, a muse, everything you could possibly name. Out of like the top 4 people I trust in my life now, she's still in those 4. If God blesses me with her and I getting back together in the near future, it's like I would take her back in a fucking heartbeat. But during that time, I realized it's like, look, I had enough. It's been a year.
Yeah.
So yeah, she eventually found out after like about 6 months. She eventually found out. She never realized how many, but she realized because unfortunately, my idiotic ass, we lived in 5757 Collins. I ended up getting my side chick literally the next building. I bought her an apartment. Right. So like when I had issues, we were like, my wife, I would just not even get in the fucking car, just go outside, walk to the next apartment, hang out with like my side chick. My goal, it was so funny because it's like my business partner at that time. He's like, yo, Rich, what are you trying to do? You're trying to have like a chick in every single building from like the 50s to like the 60s. Right. I'm like, that's not a bad goal to have. Yeah.
So what happened? So they drop the money laundering charge. They come back at you. They eventually come to a point where they're saying, they're going 10 years, then they're going 8 years, then they're, you go back and forth. What do you end up with the U.S. attorney?
Actually, I ended up with a PSI of 36 months, but I'll tell you the reasons why it went up to 7.5 years. While I was negotiating, and that's the reasons why, like I told you prior to the podcast, it took me about 2.5 years to stay in a temporary holding facility, which is MTC Brooklyn, because of that.
The PSI is a pre-sentence investigative report that a probation officer prepares to give a judge it's telling the judge, Your Honor, these are the things that he's done. This is what we, based on the federal sentencing guidelines, believe that this is the range he falls within because he distributed a controlled substance. He had more than 5 employees or 20 or 30. Correct. He had more than 50, whatever. In my case, it would be victims. In your case, it would be, he was distributing to more than, 250 people. He was, that kind of thing. And he made this much money. So they break it all down based on points. And eventually they come up with a score that says this guy should be between 36 months and 42 months. And if he takes a plea, then the government agrees. We'll suggest to the judge he should get the low end of the guidelines, which would be 36 months.
Exactly.
Did you say 36?
Yeah, 36 months.
36 months.
So that was the low end of the guidelines.
That's what you thought you were going to get.
Exactly. But to my surprise, you can never assume that everything is going to go according to plan. So here I am, February 15th, a day after February 15th, 2019, a day after Valentine's Day. I'm there, sitting down, being sentenced, and okay, cool. I've been here for 2.5 years. I'm probably gonna get time served because if people know about the 80% of your time and all that stuff, it's like
85%.
I had my mother, my ex-wife, my cousin. I had 2 close friends. They're in court. I'm most likely going to get time served. I'm going to hang out with my family that I miss so much, and everything's going to be great. Shit started to go quickly downhill within 15 minutes of the sentencing.
All right.
When as soon as I started hearing the judge saying, well, we were lenient to everyone else, but we're not going to be lenient with you. So as soon as those words came out of her mouth, I'm like, oh, fuck. So she started saying, I was like, well, your wife was originally going to be looking at 5 years for the money laundering because she was an accountant. So they thought that she was the main person of the whole situation. However, because we now consider her a victim, we're now going to make her a victim on your case. So this is like all like,
had she already been sentenced?
No, she was already sentenced and like, you know, and only given her like 1 year probation. Because I negotiated for all the 15 co-defendants that didn't cooperate out of the 17. That's the reason why I was there for 2.5 years, because I was negotiating 3 plea deals. I was negotiating mine, my wife, and a plea deal for the other 15 co-defendants, excluding the 2 that I knew that were the cooperators of the case.
Right.
So all the 15 co-defendants, all of them had 1 year probation, not 1 day in fucking prison.
Okay.
That's what I negotiated, because I gave them money and that they weren't unable to collect, because the feds, they're very simple. You either cooperate, you give them names, or you give them more assets.
Yeah.
To reduce time. I wasn't gonna fucking talk, and just for people to understand to what level of destruction I could have caused if I would have talked. If you guys followed the Balco scandal, that created some big time suspensions in baseball. Victor Conti wasn't even making about $4,000 to $5,000 in sales a day in anabolics. After him, you have Tony Bosch that ratted out Barry Bonds and Alex Rodriguez. Tony Bosch wasn't even making about $6,000 to $7,000 in sales a day. By the time the feds got me, I was, like I said, about $40,000 to $50,000 in sales a day with over 43,000 clients in my database. So it would have made Tony Bosch and the Baco scandal look like fucking Disney news if I would have ratted names out.
Right. So a bunch of those people that are clients are in sports. They're in obviously bodybuilders, just sports in general. A lot of these are big time guys, actors, like anybody who's trying to make themselves look good.
Yes,
in your roster,
100%. But you see, the feds, when you have other federal agencies like WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, that monitors all the athletes in the Olympics, and you have USADA, the United States Anti-Doping Agency, that monitors the UFC, WWE, baseball, NFL, tennis, the boxing commission. So just to kind of give you guys an idea, within 2 days from me being incarcerated, it wasn't the federal prosecutor that came to visit me. It was USADA, an agent from USADA, and it was an agent from WADA. They literally sat me down within weeks while I was awaiting bond, and they said right then and there in that reverse proffer, we'll throw away your case. We'll throw away everybody's case. However, we would like sworn statements for people that we do know that you have worked with, that we do have proof. But the only way for this to be able to stick is to have sworn statements from the person that provided it.
Right.
As soon as I saw that list, I was like, no, fuck you, man. I'm not going to rat out the people that helped me get to the point, that I am in, because I'm in a difficult situation now. So that's not going to happen. So that's just comes to show you that the feds just want a bigger story.
Yeah. No, they're big on publicity and 100%. Having a big case. Like, you think about it, like the stuff that you gave, like it's not like there's deaths, sorry, not murders. There's not like there's deaths associated with it. It's just steroids. So this is prescribed medication. You're not going to overdose and kill yourself. Like, there's no deaths associated with it.
Zero people die. Zero people die annually of steroids.
Right. So for you to get, anybody to get 5 or 6 years because you're simply distributing narcotics without a prescription seems ridiculous. But the fact is, there's newspaper reports, there's articles, like they have to slam somebody. And if you want to be that face, then they're going to slam you. And 36 months, the judge decided, 36 months, this guy might walk out of prison or jail, or the marshal's holdover at that point, because if you take 36 months, you divide it by 85%. At the very least, you're going within weeks, you're probably going to a halfway house for a month or two. Mm-hmm. So if she gave you 36 months, you're basically within a couple of weeks, you're walking out of that exactly. Holdover. It doesn't look good. It
doesn't look good at all. So as soon as I started hearing that, and her started saying that she now wants to make my wife a victim in my charge.
That's what kills me. How is your wife a participant in a conspiracy and a victim? Like that's.
I didn't understand it, dude. I did not understand it at that point in time. And then after she said that about my wife, and then she started going down the list of each and every single person that I've negotiated a plea deal for them to get probation, and I gave the feds money
Right.
for them not to see a day in jail. When she started going down the names of each and every single person, I was like, fuck, this bitch is gonna enhance me.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's gonna be some shit. So after about 10 minutes of her ranting out all those names, she started saying, it's like, well, I'm going to give you a 1-point enhancement for this person. I'm going to give you a 2-point enhancement for that person. I did see your PSI. It shows 36 months. The federal prosecutors on PSI showed 48 months. But with these enhancements, I'm sentencing you to 90 months.
So at the high end, it was 48 months.
Yeah.
Low end 36, low end 36, high end 48. That's the range. She's saying, no, I'm going above that.
She went above that. But this is where I got fucked. My plea deal was 0 to 10 with waiving my appeal rights if she sentences me over 95 months.
Oh, okay.
So for people that don't understand that is that even though she sentenced me to 90 months, she still sentenced me below what my appeal rights was.
Right.
Which is 95.
Look, here's the whole thing. Even that doesn't matter because the truth is it moves so slowly that even if you had the right to appeal, you would have they could have dragged it out for 2 or 3 years.
100%.
You still would have fucking served all that time.
100%. I got a guy right now that was a cellie of mine. Dude never did any of his crime. This is a guy that had a successful produce business in the Hunts Point market, right? Making about $20 to $30 million a sales a year, selling fucking produce. What he used to do is he used to have his brother handle his business affairs while he was actually gone on vacation with his family, right? So what his brother used to do is that he used to go to Colombia. He would go to like Mexico and tell the people that he's buying the trailer loads of lettuce or tomatoes from, saying, hey, you know what? These the cartels are going to be putting in so-and-so stuff in this, in this trailer load because I'm the one that's going to be handling the distribution. After a couple of years of his brother doing that, it's like he goes to his normal annual vacation with his family. They grab him, they grab his 2 kids out of Princeton University and his wife, and sat him down in all of reverse proffer and said, hey, you know what? We know you did not do this. It's your brother that was the whole mastermind of this operation. However, if you do not cooperate against your brother, we will make sure that you're right in fucking jail, and we'll make sure that everybody points the finger at you. So what does a person with money do? Fuck you. You ain't got no case. I'm going to end up going to trial. Gave him 25 years.
That's a mistake.
Gave him 25 years. Till this day, right now, he's still fighting his appeal.
Yeah. Listen, my buddy Pete's been fighting his case for 20 some odd years and keeps winning. He'll win, and he's been resentenced 3 times. They'll bring him back to be resentenced. They resentence him. They'll knock off 2 years out of 34 years. Oh no, I'm sorry. Out of a 30, no, he got 40 years. They'll go bring him back, resentence him. They'll knock off 1 year, 2 years, 1 year, 2 years. He's down to 34 years. He's been fighting for 20 years. Like they will drag you because their whole thing is like in his case, the district court said, this is bullshit. He got too much time. You got to re-sentence him. They're like, oh, okay. They knock off 1 year. Starts the process over. They goes back in front of the district court and they say, that's not enough. Oh, okay. 5 more years later, he gets back and they go 2 years off. Like it's a game and all the rules are in their favor. And they've been dragging this guy for about 20, 25 years now at this point. And
it's scary because that's one of it's crazy you say those things because I'm glad that I can relate to somebody that understands how the system is, because I tell some people what I went through. I tell some people what some of my cellmates have gone through, and they're like, nah, that's bullshit. It's like, that can't possibly have happened. And I'm like, look, what you don't understand is that these feds are giving out years like fucking we give out candy and Halloween.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're going to go to trial 30 years on some shit that could be a fucking...
No, a prosecutor will give you 10 years or 20 years when probably you deserved a year or 2 at most, maybe even probation, and sleep like a baby at night and tell himself that he did something good for society. And they justify it and they completely, oh, he's a criminal. The way they look at it is, well, he's a criminal, he gets whatever he deserves. And there are people that say that all the time. Well, you're a criminal, you get what you deserve. Well, wait a minute now. If someone steals a $10 shirt out of a, from a Walmart and you chop their hand off, is that reasonable? Like, oh, well, I mean, it's always reasonable. Yeah, fuck them. It is until it's your 19-year-old daughter, or your 18-year-old son, or your mother who forgot and left something in her bag or did something wrong. Then suddenly it becomes, you had a couple drinks too many and you got pulled over, you got a DUI, and then you get in front of the judge and you're like, well, wait a minute, I'm an insurance salesman. I have 2 kids. I have a wife. I'm a good person. I vote. I teach Little League. You get in front of a judge and the prosecutor's saying he put everybody's life in danger on the road. He was falling down. This is a consistent thing with him. We got 4 guys that'll stand up and testify that they told him not to drive. He could have killed somebody, and you're going, they'll make you out like a murderer, and you get 5 years and you're like, oh my God.
Dude, it's like I'll tell you
what just happened.
I tell you when I was fucking shocked. You see, when Miami Times did an article on me 2 months in, and I saw the words, quote unquote, the Pablo Escobar of steroids.
Oh yeah, you're done.
I was like, I do this fucking interview with this guy in hopes of being portrayed as this great person. And it's like, and he writes that there? Don't get me wrong. All the people in prison, like my friends and all that shit, was like,
they thought that super cool.
I was like, oh shit, you're the man, bro. You did that much, man. It's like, and I was like, to it, and every now and then, it's like, I kind of smirk because I'm like, fuck, it's like I was that big. Yeah. But it didn't necessarily work in my favor. It didn't necessarily work in my favor to the standpoint where, when I saw that, I was like, shit, it's like, here I am. Cause a lot of people say like, man, you worked with all these celebrities, you worked with all these, athletes and all that stuff. It's like, you must have been happy, like working with them. I'm like, there's not. It's like, I genuinely was in the business, not for them. Yeah, they paid the bills. Yeah, they helped me get my nice cars. But what woke me up at night, being proud of what I was doing, is the person that didn't have a functioning sexual life with his wife for years. I was able to have him have a healthy marriage. A person that was fat and obese and depressed and numerous times contemplating suicide. Now he has a fucking phenomenal body, running around at 5 or 6% body fat, happy with his life. Right. Someone that had epilepsy, seizures 24/7, 3 or 4 a day, and I would provide him a medication that would completely eliminate that. Those were the people that I was getting 3 or 4 emails a day that inspired me to continue on. It wasn't the Mark Wahlbergs, it wasn't the Roman Reigns, it wasn't the Josh Dumels, it wasn't all these athletes that people obviously know that have followed my case. It was those individuals.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna say it's funny too, because like even in doing this podcast and just doing the podcast in general, like just telling my story in general, which I don't particularly think is inspiring at all, but I tell my story and I get emails from guys who are just like, bro, your story is inspiring and what you're doing now and you're amazing, and and it's like, to me it's like, I'm just waking up I'm just trying to live my life, bro. Like, I'm not trying to be inspired. I'm not trying to really even help anybody. I'm just trying to create content, and hopefully my podcast takes off and I can make some money at it at some point in the future, because I'm certainly not making much now. But, I'm just trying to kind of live my life, but people see that and they get inspired. And it's like, to you, you're going through the motions running a business.
It's not your intention.
Right. It wasn't your intention. And then people are like, the first few emails I got, I was just like, inspiring. Like, and we both know Ryan Root.
Yeah.
And he was the same thing. He's like, I would get guys that would send me these emails like, bro, you don't understand. Like, I'm able to have sex with my wife. The stuff you're giving me has changed my life. Like, and he was like, and I never thought of it like that till you start getting those emails and you start going, wow, this is a great feeling. Like, this makes my life feel like I've got purpose, which is more than the money.
Of course.
Because the truth is, when you were laying in bed at night in prison, you didn't once miss one of those cars, did you?
No.
You probably missed all your family, your friends, like that. Right.
My son, and it's funny you segued into this, because the 3 times I contemplated suicide while I was incarcerated, 2 of them was primarily because of my son. There was a reason why the only illegal thing that I used to do in prison is to have a cell phone, because, you've been in prison. You get that message every 5 seconds. This call is from a federal prison. I never wanted my son to ever hear those words. because my son at 3 years old accrued more travel in his passport than probably someone in his lifetime. Because if I was training a client in the UK, my son was there with me. If I was in China with a client, my son was with me. So here my son goes from being with me every single day to like now years passing by, and I keep giving him an excuse that I'm at work. And every single day when I'm video chatting with him, and he's like, "Daddy, please quit. Please quit." Like, he's like, "I want you home. I miss you." That shit hurts, bro.
Yeah, that's the worst.
That shit hurt, especially if you're a loving father and have gone through the stuff that I've gone through, like for 3.5 years to try to have him, and even losing hope of ever trying to be a father. It's like, that was the most difficult part. That's the reasons why, like September 29th, when I got that ankle monitor off of me, man, it's like for a whole week. It's like today was like the first official work day. It's like I took him out. Like he wanted go-karts, we'd go in go-karts. You want rock climbing, we're going rock climbing. It's like I just wanted to spend time with him from the standpoint where, thank God for the great relationship, co-parenting relationship I had with my ex-wife, because she realized how overwhelming it was for him. And she was like, "Don't worry, just stay." And it's like, I haven't even been in my apartment for like more than like a day, because it's like he would want me to sleep with him. He would want me to stay next to him and all that stuff, thinking that I'm going to abandon him. Right. Till this, like even like yesterday, he still can't grasp it. He still thinks at 9 years old that I'm going to leave. That he thinks that this is just a dream. And that's why I tell people, I was like, look, it's I was making all that money, but I was fucking miserable. The excessive amount of money I was spending on prostitutes and all that stuff, it's filling a void, bro. So that's why I tell people, like, look, there's one thing in life, making money, and there's one thing in life in knowing what your priorities are, what helps your mental sanity, what helps you spiritually, what helps you intellectually. See, now I have a phenomenal rejuvenation clinic, that I partnered up with, that we're doing phenomenally well. I have secured now 10 franchises that are growing at a rate of 2 to 3 franchises a month, doing very, very well. My supplement line got trademark, doing for, I haven't been promoting it yet, but at the rate in which it's going to be doing phenomenally well. But ask me if I'm working the amount of hours that I worked before. Ask me if I have not learned my lesson. I'll tell you right now, my son comes first. 5:30 in the afternoon hits. I'm with him till 9 o'clock at night. Don't get me wrong. To justify that type of a lifestyle, I'm up at 4 in the morning. Right. I'm up at 4 in the morning talking to my resources from 4 to 6 and just working nonstop. So to justify that, I can now spend time with my son. Whereas like when you're making all that money, you have all those responsibilities, all these people garnering your attention, this constant travel. There's a reason why my wife, my ex-wife, has been through 3 infidelities with me, still stuck by my side. 2 times I became a millionaire within the relationship. 2 times I filed for bankruptcy in the relationship, still stuck by my side. So people always say, it's like, well, why a federal indictment was the cause of the divorce? I said, well, do you know that 96% of people that go to prison usually end up in divorce? 96%.
I didn't know that was a percentage.
96% of people that go into prison, with a marriage. So whenever you're in prison and you hear somebody saying, "Oh, I got a phenomenal relationship with my wife and all that stuff," and they're like, "How long you been down?" It's like 6 years. I was like, "You're fucking delusional." She probably has somebody else. But the fact, that's rare.
No, it's super rare. The only people I know, by the way, and I've had this conversation on the podcast before, the only people I know where the marriage stays together is when the guy is like a multi-millionaire. He still has money coming in, so he's still able to take care of his wife, and he has a short enough sentence that she's willing to stick by him. Like, you have a 10-year sentence, you have no money, and she now has to work a job or 2 jobs to pay the bills. Bro, and what are you doing? Hey, where were you last night? Hey, can you put money on my books? Hey, because it's now a one-sided relationship. That shit goes south so quick.
100%. That's the reasons why. It's so funny you said that, because that's the reasons why in the 5.5 years that I was down, not once did I actually put money in my books. Don't get me wrong. When our assets was frozen and we didn't have any money coming in, I was pretty fucking creative because when people heard about my case, they're like, oh shit, yeah, we knew about you. It's like, can you teach us how to work out? So it's funny because you talk about commissary and all that other stuff. You know how I was making my commissary for the first 2 years? I was giving out workout protocols and diet protocols to people in prison.
Yeah.
Because they knew about my case. They knew about Mark Wahlberg. They knew about all that stuff. So it's like I was actually coaching
They're paying
people.
you in commissary.
They're paying me in commissary. So up to the point where I even taught some individuals how to circumvent the system in BOP. Because we all know, if anybody knows about anabolics, people know about clenbuterol. Clenbuterol is a very famous fat burner. So what people don't know is that asthma pumps that contain albuterol sulfate is a byproduct of clenbuterol. So what I used to do is to get people ripped and shredded in prison. I used to tell them, say, hey, just go downstairs and say you got asthma. But say that you're allergic to all pumps, but with the exception of one particular byproduct called albuterol. So make sure you get an albuterol sulfate pump. I'll teach you how to pump it. I'll teach you how to take it. You'll get on a ketogenic diet. You'll be on nothing on fucking macros or anything. It's just pure fucking protein. Watch you get ripped to shreds. Make a long story short, I was having motherfuckers at 4, 5, 6% body fat working on water bags, like ripped to fucking shreds and all that stuff. And they were paying me my commissary. It's like I was able to send money to my wife to help with the bills.
Right.
Because how many people?
Did you ever do any business plans? I mean, I knew guys that were charging $200-$300 to write a business plan that was 3-4 pages long.
I became more of a jailhouse lawyer.
Okay.
Because one of the things, because I knew that my sentence was excessive. The only thing about it is just that I knew that anything that would have passed through my judge, she was going to reject.
Right.
So I started understanding the laws to the standpoint where I was helping my colleagues in getting reduction sentence, making sure that FSA credits would get integrated. If they weren't getting integrated, reaching to Grand Prairie, which is region. And I got to the point where I was so good. I'll tell you a story. It's so fucking funny. People that have been incarcerated know that there's something that's called shots. You get shots. It's called severity shots. You got high severity, moderate severity, low severity. Having a cell phone is a high severity shot. Right. They take 41 days off a good time. I've had a cell phone my entire time, 5.5 years. And what's crazy is that they've always suspected that I had a cell phone. But the fact of the matter is that people don't that's why I became a jailhouse lawyer. What a lot of people don't understand is that when you're going into your disciplinary hearing, where they hit the hammer to determine on whether or not you're gonna get sanctioned, doesn't work like court. They have to have what's called exculpatory evidence. So I used to fuck with these people. That's the reasons why I was in 4 or 5 different destinations, throughout my entire trial, because I would always beat them on discrepancies. It's like, okay, well, this shot is written incorrectly. Yeah, you caught my cell phone in my proposed cell phone under the bed, but guess what? That's a common area.
Yeah, anybody could have put it there.
Anybody could have put it there.
Whoever told you to search there probably put it there. Yeah,
and they used to get so pissed off. So after winning 1 or 2 shots, they would do what's called diesel therapy. They would redesignate my ass and keep me in fucking transit for like 3 months and put me somewhere else. And what do? Like I said, I want to be a father. There's no way in fucking hell you're going to deprive me of a fucking cell phone, regardless of the price. I get another cell phone, a couple of people. And I tell everybody, it's like, no matter where you go, you're always going to have fucking rats. You're always going to have people that are fucking envious. So, and it gets to the point where I kept getting redesignated, not because I was being sanctioned. It was just because it got to the point where and this started in Miami, because I speak Spanish, fluent Spanish. So I had the Puerto Rican guys that didn't speak a speck of Spanish, me being their witness. And me technically representing them in the disciplinary hearings. And I remember when I was in Santa Rosa in the county jail, people coming up to me and say, "Hey, I got a disciplinary hearing next week. Come, let's figure out what to write, blah blah blah." And all this. And I'm there writing how am I going to be presenting to my proposed client, right, to this DHO guy, the disciplinary hearing officer. And it got to the point where I helped 7 people not get shots. My biggest success was a G27 friend of mine. He ended up losing 141 days of good time because it was his 3rd offense for a 100 series shot. Helped him win an appeal in region.
Right. Got
his 141 days back. That was like and man, this dude wanted to buy me a fucking house. Right. because how well off it was. But for me, it was great because what a lot of people don't realize is that I've seen with my own fucking eyes officers even set people up.
Yeah. Yeah, or they'll find the cell phone and then they'll say, I found it in his locker and his locker was locked. You really found my cell phone in a shoe that was under my bed because I know that's where I had it. But the officer's been around and he knows that you can beat that shot. So he'll lie and say it was here, or he'll, whatever. If he gets enough drugs from you, they get bonuses. So they'll plant the drugs. They'll steal it from somebody else, take a little bit out, and plant the drugs so that I get $250 for this because I found it. And then 4 days later, I found some more dope on this guy, and I got another $250. Like they're literally just setting up the inmates to get money.
It's funny you said that because I'll tell you how crazy the fucking system is. The number one person in the Miami camp that was bringing shit in, some lesbian, I'm not gonna name her name. That was bringing shit in was also the number one most ruthless fucking person to catch you. This bitch was sometimes fucking Rambo. It would be like at 11:30 at night, the lights off. She's crawling in the fucking floor, man. Like just waiting for the fucking glare of the screen. But this is a bitch that was getting $200 per 100 series shot. $200. In 6 months, she went from a regular it's called, what is it? Secret
SIS?
SIS. She went from an SIS officer to a lieutenant for how many people she was cracking down. But little did they know is that this is the same bitch that's bringing it in.
Yeah.
So there was like, so you guys in Miami probably heard of like this huge indictment that happened with like about 12 different officers and shit like that, and her being like the top of the person. It was like, because it was crazy.
Yeah.
She was bringing in the fucking cell phones, the cigarettes. She was even bringing the fucking hookers.
Listen, in Miami, in Coleman, they busted like 8 or 9 officers. They were bringing in like knives. Like you're bringing in store-bought knives. Like that's just stupid. They're bringing in cell phone. This is to the pin. Cell phones, knives, drugs, and eventually, of course, they get busted. But yeah, it's there. The cops are insane. When I was in Coleman, this was before COVID, there were very few cell phones, right? Maybe, I'll bet you there weren't 20 or 30 on the whole compound. Well, my buddy Pete says now every 3 or 4 months when they'll go through and they'll do a massive search of they'll come with 150 cell phones every 3 months. And he said, because the officers are bringing in the cell phones, because all of the older officers, they forced them to retire because of COVID. And they brought in new guys. He said the most senior officer on the compound has like 2 or 3 years experience. So they're not making a lot of money. They haven't been around long enough. And what they're doing to supplement is they're bringing in drugs and cell phones for the inmates.
It's funny you said that. My first cell phone in MDC Brooklyn was a follower / admirer / former client. There was an officer in NBC Brooklyn that came to my unit, realized who I was, and he was like, "Oh my God, Kevin LeBron is like one of my favorite athletes of all times. I admire him, blah blah blah, and all that other stuff." And he was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Man, I'm not really doing." He's like, "Come downstairs and work in the kitchen for me." I was like, "All right, cool." So I worked in the kitchen with him and all that other stuff. And he's like, "Man, it's like I would do anything for a phone call, with Kevin LeBron." I was like, "So you would do anything for a phone call?" And I was like, "You sure about that?" He's like, "Yeah, man, I would do anything." So I tested him. I tested his option. I was like, "Look, man, it's like I'm having trouble, buying people's minutes, trying to talk to my son and have to wait another hour, to talk to him. It's like it's just not convenient for me, man." And he's like, "Well, let me see what I can do for you."
Yeah, because of the inmates. I'm just saying for everybody, the inmate cell phones, you can make a 15-minute phone call, then it shuts off. You have to wait an hour before you make another phone call.
Exactly.
And that's assuming you get right back in line and you hit it at the right time.
Exactly.
You may end up waiting another couple hours.
Especially when you're in a place that's overpopulated like MDC Brooklyn. The average line wait was 2 hours.
Fuck.
So if you were trying to phone sex, you're shit out of luck. But I'll tell you what transpired. He was like, "Let me see what I can happen." I'm like, "Oh, you know what? Since you've been really, since you're really trying to work hard and trying to figure something out for me, it's like I think I could probably get you on a call with like Kevin LeBron in a few days." He's like, "Really? You could do that?" I was like, "Yeah." So 2 days later from that phone call, he's like, "Hey, Rich, man, you got to go upstairs. You're done with work." And I was like, "What are you talking about, man? I work till normally till 3. He's like, "You're done with work." he gives me a styrofoam thing that he usually gives to like inmates that were bringing leftover foods and all that stuff, right?
Right.
So he's like, hey, I got you some food too. And I was like, I know it wasn't fucking food. I'm thinking
Yeah.
it's like, it's all fucking suspicious and shit. So I go upstairs, I go to my room, I open it up, first Android phone.
Nice.
So I was like, holy fucking shit. I see him the next day. I was like, dude, he's like, don't worry about it, man. I'm a father. And I was like, look, now I'm going to show up, I'm going to hold my part of the bargain. That day I gave him the number to Kevin Laverne, spoke with him for like about an hour. He since then, dude, he was so fucking overprotective of me to the standpoint where he would tell me when the shakedowns were going to happen. He was going to tell me, like, hey, if you have people in so-and-so unit, let them know. And it got to the point where I was helping the Cribs, the Bloods, the Puerto Ricans. I was like, I would go to them because I was not only just making the food, I was taking them in the carts to each and every single unit.
Oh yeah, because COVID.
Exactly. So I had the access to those units. So if this officer would tell me, he's like, hey, there's going to be a shakedown in so-and-so unit, so-and-so time, I would go the day before and I would tell the people in the kitchen, I'm like, yo, let everybody know. There's going to be a shakedown tomorrow. Put all the cell phones, put all your stuff in one of these pans, empty pans. I'll bring it back to you tomorrow.
Nice.
So you guys would not lose anything. So I was like the insider and all that stuff, and it worked really, really well to the standpoint where, as soon as I got out, that officer was one of the first people to show me love. He reached out to me, in Messenger. He's like, hey man, God's good, man. I see you with your kid, man. God bless you. I wish you the best. Blah blah blah, and all that other stuff.
Yeah, you did way shittier time than I did because like I wasn't in there during COVID. COVID just made the federal prison system just suck. Like, I mean, everybody I know that's in prison now, they're like, bro, it's horrible. Like, when I was there, it was pretty well regulated. Like, you could go to the yard for 3, 4, 5 hours at a time. You went to the chow hall. You could go to other units. You could, you know what I'm saying? Like, you could do all like clockwork. You had commissary. It was really a much easier experience, and you had a lot of diversity. You could go to the library, you could go to Votech, you could go do things. You know what I'm saying? It was a little city. Now, man, it's like you never leave the fucking unit.
Dude, we were. If one person would be contaminated in the unit, you're fucked. You're fucked for 3-6 months. Being woken up at 5 a.m. every single day to have your temperature checked.
Yeah,
and getting that shit up your fucking nose every week until everybody is cleared for them to reopen the compound. Yeah. It was fucking insanity to the standpoint where when I was 8 months out from being released, I'm seeing all these people in Yazoo City with fucking phones. All these fucking people. And I'm like, this is the 5th shot for cell phone that I've won. I'm not going to get a cell phone. I'm not going to get a cell phone. I'm not going to get a cell phone. But fuck this, it's like this, what should we call it? This containment and this quarantine, and it's like not having anything to do because I can't go because it's like because I was active. It's like I love sports. I was always in sports. So not being able to do anything but play fucking spades and dominoes, it's like you're gonna get fucking tired of doing the same shit for 4 or 5 hours a fucking day. So I eventually gave in. And dude, I went from being the normal disciplined person, of being on the phone for maybe 30 minutes a day, timing it strategically to just talk to my kid and handle my affairs, to being on the fucking cell phone 17 fucking hours a day, because that quarantine was really bad. And that cell phone helped a lot of these individuals with their sanity, because these places, because the cops were scared of going into these areas because of this whole COVID thing and potentially contracting it. It's like they weren't keeping up with the cleanliness. They weren't keeping up with making sure that other people are clean, because you could be a clean person that will keep your cube and keep your cell clean. But let's face it, there's a lot of fucking dirty people, man, in prison.
Well, first of all, let's assume that everybody's clean, okay? Humans are not meant to have 175 guys or 150 guys living in that small of a space. It's like your body, you're filthy. As soon as you take a shower, you're automatically shedding. You're already becoming dirty. You're already, one guy, anything from using the bathroom to whatever, it spreads so quickly. If anybody gets sick at all, it spreads. So how many computers did you have for 150 guys using 3 computers, 5? If you're lucky, if all 5 worked, there would be 5 computers. 3 of them worked. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's like, there's so many cell phones. Everybody's on the cell phone. Even if I wiped it off. With what? You know, like it's just you're just not meant to have that many people living together. And so, you know, you're right. Like it doesn't take much for anybody to get a little sick or get some germs. It spreads no matter how many times you're washing your hands, and it falls apart, you know, very quickly. And then it's just a fucking horrible situation to be in. You know, not even if it's just somebody not that there aren't just filthy beasts in there. There are, but for the most part, people can be really clean and you can still just spread it. Like it's horrible. I mean, it's a horrible situation to be in, especially in prison. So I totally get them releasing like old people, you know, people with medical conditions, you know, like that, like you get 5 years, like, and you're 60 years old, you get 5 years and you have breathing problems. Like you could die in prison. You know what I mean?
And I've seen people die.
Yeah.
I seen like just like when I was in NBC Brooklyn during the polar vortex. There was one time that a transformer blew up in NBC Brooklyn. There's a huge lawsuit going on, and it's about to get settled pretty soon because it's been ongoing now for almost 3 years. But the lights went off, and it was negative fucking 20 degrees. No, people that would require dialysis couldn't get dialysis, no treatments. We were probably being fed one bologna sandwich a day, and that was it, dude. There was riots. Right. People were like, you know, they were rioting. People's families were outside rioting, and people were literally dying because first and foremost, the conditions were already horrible. So now they can't get treatment. Now they're not being fed. The only reasons why my ass was saved is because I used to buy people's commissaries. Like I said, I also used to do protocols for people in exchange for commissary. So I had 2 fucking lockers stuffed, and I had commissary under the bed. So I had more than enough commissary. So Marcelli and I were saved because of that reason. Because come on, one bologna sandwich for the rest of your fucking day.
Yeah. You got 5-6 years. You didn't get a death sentence. Like I'm not supposed to die in here. You do understand? Yeah, I'm a criminal, but I wasn't. I was meant to do a few years and leave. I'm not supposed to die in here. You know what I'm saying? Because you guys have an issue. Like, but they don't really care. So, regardless. So you have a YouTube channel?
Yes, I have my YouTube channel. You guys can check Richard Rodriguez in YouTube. I'm a regular on RX Muscle with Dave Palumbo. You guys can check also my clinic, Circadian Rejuvenation. .com. We're actually doing very well from a franchise model perspective. My supplement line, while it's trademarked, the supplement line is called Fake Natty Sups. I have the products, but I haven't launched it yet because we're trying to hash out some marketing strategies first. But thank God, it's like the love that I got as soon as I got out. I'm telling you, man, June 8th I got out. At 4 a.m. in Jackson, Mississippi, Greyhound bus station. My business partner, Owen Nelson, picked me up at 6 a.m. 7 a.m. I had a cell phone. The following day, I was in RX Muscle. I was getting interviews. I started getting I started hitting the ground running. The love that I ended up getting was so freaking overwhelming that I was able to rebound pretty freaking quickly, dude. Like within 3 months' time, I had my two companies launched, a couple of coaching clients. I'm now in Miami with my son. I can't ask for more, bro. I can't ask for more. God has blessed me. I'm grateful for you having me here on the podcast, and things are looking great. I'm going to be at the in VH1 starting next week. I'm going to start filming for the VH1 True Crime Story.
I
got a couple of people that want to work with me on the documentary / film, but you know how the film industry is, man.
It'll take forever. It could take forever.
One, it takes forever. 2, they want to give up fucking rights. Or they want to write the story the way they want to write it.
Yeah.
Or their perspective.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you right now, my True Crime Story, bro. I mean, I went up there. It was, super cool. It's like the first time I've had makeup put on me. Horrible. Like I'm looking at myself. I'm like, this isn't normal. This doesn't look natural. They're like, you're going to look great on camera. I'm like, I don't think so. So let me know, bro. I'll feel like they caked it on. I felt like I look like a fucking, like a little China doll or something like that. I mean, watch out for it. But they do. They dress you up. They super professional staff. Like they know all about your stuff. Like it's a really cool setup. Nice. They'll put you in a nice hotel. It's right catty corner from the place. place. Like
Okay.
you're going to end up doing the same thing. It's funny because I just found out that you're doing it, and I just did it like a few months ago. So it'll be cool. But then like it was the first time I went to New York City.
Oh, it was your first time?
Oh yeah. So
yeah.
And my girlfriend, first time she was ever on a plane that wasn't Con Air, where the shades are closed.
Oh wow.
So she was on a plane, but she's like, yeah, but the shades were closed. Like I didn't know what was going on. Like I sat down, I sat there. There was movement. There's this time she sat in the window seat. She's looking out the whole time. Like then she got to New York. She grew up like on dairy farms. Like to her, Tampa is a big city. So we went to New York. She's like, this is nuts.
Well, yeah, because you've never been there.
I've never been in New York. Like
yeah.
I've been to cities. Like I've been to plenty of cities. No, nothing compares to New York.
And I kind of miss that of New York because I've been to New York all my life. But then once my wife was pregnant with Max, we changed paths and we went to and we moved to Miami. But if it's one thing that I do miss about Miami, it's like I'm gonna tell people. I was like, look, if you can succeed, if it was one thing if it's one thing I miss from New York, is that it's just that hustle and bustle, that fast-paced atmosphere, that survival of the fittest type of mindset.
Yeah.
That if you succeed in New York, you will succeed anywhere. I've told people, I was like, hey, if my son tells me right now, Daddy, I want to go to college in New York, I'm like, let's do this. You know why? Because living a sheltered life like Florida, where people are like, hey, how you doing? How's your life? How's your family? You're not going to get that small talk. No. In New York, when I was closing multi-million-dollar deals, it's like people were like, hey, what are you here for? What can I do for you? You got 10 minutes to prove yourself. If not, get the fuck out.
Right.
And these are like CEOs of fucking companies. Whereas like here, I'm closing $100,000 deals for like franchises. And they're like, hey man, how you doing? And these are friends. It's like, hey, let's have some coffee. Let's go out for some drinks. Let's go out to the party. It's very, very casual. That's why I tell people, I was like, hey, you know what? It's like some of my best years and some of my best business experiences that have enabled me to transition successfully and quickly, I've learned while in New York.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was, I was thinking more like just the city itself because, we were only there like a couple of days. We walked around for a couple of days. But even then, after 2 days, I was like, okay, look, I'm already feel anxiety ridden. I'm ready to go home. I mean, this is cool. It's cool. It's flashy, I'm ready. And my girlfriend, of course, she was ready within an hour or two. She's like, I feel anxiety. She's like, it's overwhelming. It's crazy. It's so much. There's just so much going on at all times. And it's overwhelming. So for me, I mean, I grew up in Tampa. I grew up, so yeah, it was, but yeah, anyway, same thing. It would be super cool. Like, and if you've watched any of their storylines, the way they really focus on redemption.
I've watched one of them in particular because very similar situation as mine. Tyler Ballman from also Steroid Bus. They used to call him AKA Musclehead. Very popular YouTube personality, and he's doing 10 years actually instead of 7.5 that I did. But the reasons why they gave him more years is because he was falsifying an already legitimate OEM manufacturer. So let's say if I would have been doing $27 million in sales of anabolics, but my anabolics company name would have been Pfizer.
Oh yeah.
I would have been fucked. Because that's forgery. That's trademark infringement.
Right. So it's just another massive enhancement. So.
Exactly. So he ended up getting 10 plus years. So his ex-wife was part of that true crime story, and a couple of people that were associated with him. So I saw that one. I saw that one because that intrigued me, obviously, because it's in the same industry. But yeah, I've seen some of them. I'm really excited about it. And I'm right now, like, while I was out since June 8th, but because I was in home confinement and not really coming out, and it's like, and going out anywhere, it's like what I really consider true freedom was September 29th when I grabbed my son at the airport and hugged him. So it's like, I'm still taking it all in, dude. I still think that it's a dream.
Yeah.
So like.
Oh, I felt like that for about 6 months. I remember telling people, they're like, how do you feel? I'm like, I keep waiting to get the phone call or have the marshal show up and say, yo, there was a mistake. Like, you got to go back.
And you know what's crazy that you said that? There's one of my friends that was a crib member. After doing 10 years, got his charge dropped. I remember him and I sitting down, and he's waiting for them to say, hey, so-and-so, pack out. He finally goes downstairs, and this is in NBC Brooklyn. He goes downstairs, has his wife and his 2 kids downstairs in the car. He crosses the street, hugs his wife, hugs his 2 kids, kissed them. Within a minute, right when he's about to get in the car, hold on, sir, come over here for 1 second. New fucking charge.
Oh, yeah, okay. I've seen.
Rearrested him. Like and brought him back up. Within an hour and a half from the time in which I said my goodbyes to him, he comes back to the same fucking cell, crying up a storm.
Fuck, bro. Horrible.
Crying up a storm, and I'm like, dude, what happened, Trig? And he's like, man, it's like they couldn't at least let me have like dinner with my wife and my kids. After 10 fucking years, happy that his charge was dropped, they caught him with a new fucking charge.
No, it's never enough for him. Hey, I appreciate you guys checking out the video. If you like the video, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified of videos just like this. Also, leave me a comment in the comment section. Listen, I got books, also Patreon, and I appreciate it. Appreciate you guys watching, and see ya.